Hi everybody, Tom from Engage News. I'm absolutely delighted to be here at Bachmann Europe headquarters today, and equally delighted to be sat with Richard Proudman, who is Bachmann's rail brand manager.
Hi Tom, thanks for coming down to see us today.
It's an absolute pleasure, thank you for inviting me down. We're here today, we're going to be looking at two brand new models which are being announced at the International Engage show. So if you're watching this video this morning, you'll be able to go along to the Engage show. You'll be able to see the EPs on display at the show.
Certainly will.
Have a close-up look. We've got a new model from Graham Farish, and we've got a new model in the EFE Rail range. And I think you'll be very excited to see what those models are. So without further ado, we'll get stuck in. And the first model you can see on the table here already. It's a brand new tooling, and it's new to the Graham Farish range. And I don't think it's ever been done in Engage before.
No, I think you're right, Tom. Certainly there's a ready-to-run model. It's the BR Mark 1 POT, post office tender, also known as stowage vans, and mail and transfer of mail by rail is a very popular subject, an area of interest to a lot of people.
Yep.
We've done the POS, the post office sorter, before in N-scale. I think that was announced at the Engage show as well, around 2010,
Yep.
if my memory serves me correctly. And the POT is a perfect companion to that.
Yeah, it's a natural follow-on model, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like you say, this sort of model always seems to be quite popular. The Royal Mail and parcel stock always seems to be models that are in high demand and so
yeah, and everyone in the UK knows Royal Mail, uses it, and have probably an affinity to it in some way or another, whether it's getting a Christmas card or a birthday present as a child, or being frustrated by more modern services.
Yep, absolutely.
But the POT, as I say, goes perfectly with our POS.
Yes, yep.
This is a Diagram 732 vehicle. There was only 10 of them built, but across the BR built vehicles there were 9 different diagrams of POS and 8 different diagrams of POT. And amongst those there weren't large numbers of a given type, so it's a bit of a which one do you choose. We chose to do this diagram in 00 scale as well. We've already done that and it's been very popular. And for N scale we've, as people say, shrunk it down. It's not quite as easy as that. I'm sure we'll go into that a bit later on maybe.
Yep.
But for the N-scale model, we've got the Diagram 732. These were introduced in 1968, so there was 10 built at York, and they saw service right through to the end of the Travelling Post Office, the TPOs, in 2004.
Yeah, so quite a wide range of time periods covered there, so suitable for a lot of different modelers.
Yeah, exactly. There was a few diagrams built earlier than this, but they didn't have such longevity or built in such great numbers. I mean, 10 is not a great number, is it? But out of the different diagrams, that was relatively a large fleet.
Yep, and all new tooling.
Exactly, yes.
And you'll be able to find out more about the specific liveries that are coming out in your winter announcements.
That's right, yeah. So we started to show people the models that we're developing from all new tooling at a slightly earlier stage since we introduced the British Railway Announcements policy, whereby people can really start to plan for these models now. I think you can also appreciate the detail and the complexity of the model once it's in this sort of bare condition. Once the livery is applied, if you've got etched parts or separate metal parts or even separate plastic parts, you don't always appreciate that they're there once everything's painted the same colour. So we're using this new style slightly to show people things, and it gives us a chance to highlight events like the Engage show and give it more gravitas by using that as a platform for our launches. So it supports the event as well, and gives people something to look forward to. And then in November we'll reveal the liveries, the pricing and availability. But these are well down the line of production. So.
It's a really great looking EP, and all the usual Farish features. So you've got things like close coupling on there.
Yeah, just like the rest of our Mark 1 coaches, you've got the close coupling mechanism which is built into the floor and swings with the bogie, and the end pockets on the end of that, metal wheel sets of course. There's lots of separately fitted parts underneath with all the battery boxes, brake equipment, auxiliary equipment. It's running on the B5 bogies. There's the glazing, of course, which is separately fitted. The interesting thing on the diagram 732 is they were built in 1968, and at that time there was still mail exchanges on the move. So with the traductor arms that put the mail out for exchange with line side apparatus, and the nets which were used to bring the mail onto the train. And these vehicles on one side, the side nearest the camera, has got the recesses either side of the doors for the traductor arms. Okay. Some vehicles had arms and nets, some had arms, and some had nothing. Right. These had the recesses, but were never fitted with the arms. So presumably BR saw that operation was coming to an end. It actually ended in 1971. Right. Okay. So they made provision to fit the arms, but never did. Whereas on this side of the vehicle that's closest to us, there's no recesses at all. So both sides are quite different, even though there's no extra parts for those exchange equipment. But very very iconic vehicle, especially once you've got the Royal Mail liveries on in blue and grey as
absolutely.
Well. And they'll go perfectly with our POS. Yeah,
and in terms of haulage, they would have been seen with the Class 47 in RES colours that you released not that long ago, so you've got a perfect companion locomotive there as well to go with it.
In the early days you'd have, I'm sure, 47s and other diesel locos in BR blue and such like, and then through the eras, like you say, Parcel Sector, EWS were taken over eventually, and things like 67s pulled the last mail trains, so obviously they're available elsewhere, so people can make up a nice authentic mail train.
Yeah, excellent. So that's the first of the new toolings which we're revealing today. Like I say, if you're at the International Engage show over the weekend, you will be able to go along to the Bachmann stand. You'll be able to see the EP close up and have a chat with the team there about it. And more details on liveries and pricing and availability, like Richard said, will be announced in the winter announcements.
That's right.
Which are November.
Yep, start in November.
First Wednesday, I think, usually, isn't it?
That's it.
Every quarter. So there'll be more information on these new models in those announcements.
Should we look at the new EFE Rail items?
Should we bring the next one out and have a look at that? So we are now looking at the second of the two announcements from Bachmann ahead of the International Engage show, and I think it's something quite special actually for Engage. It's not a model that's ever been produced before. It's part of the EFE Rail brand, and it is the D600 Warship, which I think was Class 41.
That's right. Tops. Never got to the point of receiving its numbers, but it was a pioneering diesel hydraulic, really. 5 of them were ordered under the modernisation plan in 1955, and the first ones were built and entered traffic at the end of 1957. The first Type 4 diesel locomotive to be ordered under that scheme and delivered into service. D600 became the first diesel locomotive to pull the Cornish River Air Express non-stop from Paddington to Plymouth. Okay. So it chalked up a few records in that respect. It was a bit of an odd locomotive, not really wanted by the Western region. They were more keen on the the BB locomotives, which we know as the Class 42s and 43s, which were built based on the German V200s. But the British Transport Commission were pretty adamant they wanted the larger locomotives we see here for them to compare against the English Electric Class 40s, we know them, to give a direct comparison between diesel electric and diesel hydraulic. So the 5 were built by North British Locomotive Company, delivered to the Western region, and I think they perform relatively well. Obviously we've got a couple of records that we just spoke about. But the warships, the Class 42s and 43s, were much more successful. It seems they're a lot lighter in weight, but had at least the same power output and tractive effort, depending on which...
It's kind of typical of that early sort of pilot scheme locomotive, isn't it? Where they were low in number, and that was ultimately their downfall.
I mean, the irony of the modernisation plan and standardisation, that they let the Western region plough on with diesel hydraulics rather than insisting diesel electrics is relatively odd. So they were early to be withdrawn. 1967, the end of that year saw all 5 withdrawn, and then the 42s and 43s were not that far behind because again they were non-standard, they weren't diesel electrics. But during their service they were re-ended with the head code boxes. So it started out being built with head code discs and moved on to the head code boxes, split boxes aside the connecting doors. And we've got both body styles, as you can see here, on the EFE Rail model. And the side grills were also modified. So on the original locos, they were horizontal, and later they were modified to be vertical. And we've got that option.
And you've accounted for that as well?
Yeah, so we've got the two body styles and the two end styles.
So will you be able to cover all 5 class members?
Yeah, I think there's a sort of nuance in time where one had a certain combination of parts that we won't be able to cover. But for a class of 5 locomotives, you obviously have to be careful on how much tooling spread you invest in, because there's a limited return on these.
Yeah, of course.
Given the small class number.
Yeah.
But it's based on, it's been built from the Kerno 00 model, which was a model of the decade, I think it was named. So a very popular model. Yeah. Probably more popular than the prototype was in to the cruise and the Western region. So it's got very good good calibre there behind it. And these are cracking on. Again, we'll have the liveries, names, pricing and availability in the next British Rail announcements at the start of November.
Excellent.
But these are in production now, so sort of turn of the year, I would expect them to be arriving here in the UK, and people can start enjoying them.
Yeah, excellent. And you mentioned they were withdrawn in 1957.
67.
67, sorry. But one actually survived, or sort of hung on by its fingernails until about 1980.
Yes.
In the famous Woodham's scrapyard down in Barry.
I think there was some sort of preservation attempt, but it didn't come to fruition, sadly.
So there are no preserved
warships
of this type left now.
That's right. They'd all gone for scrap way before TOPS was introduced. And like I say, one languished in the scrapyard, but they were still given the Class 41 TOPS designation. But yeah, sadly, all 5 were pretty quickly taken out, and then eventually.
Has that made it a more challenging model to produce, and not having a real size, a full size one to go in?
I believe Kerno had a lot of difficulties doing the 00 model,
right?
But obviously the research
from
stage can be shared across any scale. So the hard work had been done before we sort of embarked on this project.
And in terms of specifications, do you want to run through?
Yeah, sure. So there's a
5-pole
motor. There's a coreless motor driving these, which drives both bogies, and the real thing was an A1A wheel formation, and this is driven in the same way. So it's the outer wheels on each bogie, and they include the electrical pickups. There's no electrical pickups on the middle wheels because that would add drag and not being driven. You've got the risk there that it doesn't rotate, which even being a spoked wheel would be more.
And
obvious.
one of the nice features is you have replicated the spoke wheels.
Yes, that's right.
As well,
yeah, I'm not sure if that was unique to the D600s, but it's certainly.
I think the Class 22 also had a similar thing, but not a common feature on diesel locomotives by any means. So.
Yeah, so that's been replicated. We've got lighting at each end, along with cab lights. There's switches on the PCB to turn off the lights. Turn off the tail lights, so if you're hauling a train on analog, you'll be able to have the front lights but have the rear lights off. And there's also a switch for the cab lights if you want them on or off. And then when you put a DCT decoder in, which is a Next 18 interface, that will give you more options via dedicated DCC functions to turn your end lights off or your cab lights off. In the battery box moulding, there's space for a sugar cube speaker. So there's also solder pads on the PCB to allow that to be installed relatively simply.
Not pre-fitted speaker, but space for a speaker.
Yeah, space and connections provided for a speaker. So anyone wanting to add sound has got a good head start there.
Yeah, excellent.
There's detailed interior. The bogies have got separate components to build up the relief and give you the full picture of what the prototype looked like. Obviously you've got NEM coupling pockets, they're fitted to each bogie. At either end you can pop them out and pop on the buffer beam detailing, so the pipes. And for the disc versions, you've got the full set of discs with either full open discs or half closed discs. So you can apply whichever head code pattern is relevant for your requirements.
Excellent. I think it's going to be a really popular locomotive in N-Gauge. It's sort of a missing link for those modelling the early Western.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the LMS twins recently in Graham Farish, and they are similar in their sort of prototype nature and pretty special, and they've gone really well. So I'd like to think that the Warship's going to do just as well. And obviously we've got the Class 42s in the Graham Farish range
already,
and plenty of rolling stock for them to haul. Anyone who wants to add up a whole range around these has got the ability to do so pretty easily thanks to the Graham Farish range.
Yeah, brilliant. So again, if you're at the International Engage show, go along to the Bachmann stand. You'll be able to see the two EPs on display there. Have a close-up look at them. Even at this stage, they really look like fantastic models. And
Yes, yeah, they
I'm
are
not a
very-
Western modeller. I don't have any excuse for one, but I think one might find its way into the collection anyway. And we'll certainly take a much closer look on Engage News when they're released. And again, you'll be able to see the full details of all deliveries and the pricing in the winter British Rail announcements.
That's right.
Yeah. Brilliant. Richard, thank you so much for letting us have a close-up look at these two brand new models. It's great to see more Engage coming through in both the Graham Farish and the EFE ranges. Yeah, we look forward to seeing more details on them in November.
Yeah, we look forward to sharing those.
Brilliant. So we've seen the two models. This is the first of two videos that we're filming here today. We're going to hang around and I'm going to have a chat with Richard about Engage in general, about Richard's time here at Bachmann and his modelling interests. That'll be over on the Engage News YouTube channel and on the site. Once you're finished here, if you head over onto there to catch up with that. But yeah, thanks very much again, Richard, for showing us
No problem,
these,
Tom.
new models.
Please do come and see the models at the Engage show and future events thereafter. Look forward to showing them in all their glory.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
No problem.